originating from the podcast studio inside FAM 360's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. The Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast is designed to encourage, equip, and inspire our audience through a combination of inspirational stories and real-life experiences shared by other successful and skilled leaders in a variety of vocations. We hope that the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast empowers each one of us to step out, step up, and ultimately thrive as leaders. Now here's our host, Mr. Matt Maloney.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Matt Maloney. I am excited. Actually, let me check that. I'm pumped about today's guest. A guy that, if you know the guy, he's fun-loving, full of great stories, just is an authentic leader in his own right. Sometimes may not even realize that he is so authentic, just draws people in, just a great guy. And I can't wait for our audience to meet him. Before I introduce him, just a little background on him. He is the Chief Client Officer for Invicta Health Solutions. That's what he does in his professional life. He leads the development and management of client deliverables, including key performance indicators and customer satisfaction for that organization. He's got nearly, or maybe in excess of 20 years of healthcare revenue cycle management experience and been in that part of the healthcare industry. And really, I think most importantly, he's kind of woven his servant heart and kind of his community servanthood into his professional journey to really inspire others, to lift people up in the communities where he, through his travels in his professional career, where that takes him, and has really inspired people in both local and regional and national HFMA membership groups. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to share this quote with the audience that I think embodies you. Leading by example rather than position is what distinguishes a person as a leader, and that's from Johnny Coles. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Mr. Jude Crowell.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. That was very kind. I mean, I feel like I don't deserve any of the accolades. I mean, I really don't. We were talking a little bit before, and just how blessed we are, right? And just how we've been given favor to just do what we're supposed to do and follow the path that God's laid out for us, right?
Yeah.
So just blessed beyond measure. Thank you.
And really, it's you kind of submit, you let it all go, and every day there's a journey and a new opportunity on that daily journey that God presents to us, and that is, it's so amazing. It really is amazing. And I think that when we were talking earlier before the show just about other countries and things that we see in other parts of the world, and I don't think, we're as Americans, we're so tied up in what we're doing and what's going on right here. And then of course we all have our own, problems. We have our own insecurities. Absolutely. We have our own stuff. What we have and what God, I believe, and you believe, 100%. What God has provided is so incredibly just immeasurable and beyond what we deserve.
Agreed. And when you say what we deserve, it's not we don't even deserve it.
No,
it's just given to us, and it's just amazing. God, it just shapes our lives, and if you pay attention to that walk, or pay attention and really try to listen to what God's saying to you, and I'm going to use what He's trying to say to us. It's just, it gets in your life, and it's everything you do, you try to make the world a little bit better, because that's what God would want you to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Well, we talked about it on our prior episode in our prior podcast about gratitude, and I struggle with this intermittently throughout, my daily journey sometimes, and just, forgetting to be grateful and having gratitude for the things. But when I approach life that way, and whether it's with something I'm dealing with, a challenge I'm dealing with in my business, or it's a challenge I'm dealing with in a relationship in my home or outside my home or whatever, but I still approach it with that heart of gratitude. It just changes the perspective.
I agree. And also that to just be kind, right? So many folks just miss that opportunity. Just be kind, and never mistake kindness as a weakness. Just being kind is the right. I mean, my kids, it drives them crazy. I'm like, kindness kindness matters.
I say it solves almost everything.
So many issues.
Yep.
But that heart of gratitude, just being able to say thank you on a regular basis. Like, we are so incredibly blessed in this country and especially in our industry. We're just so blessed.
You're right.
And folks.
And we take it for granted.
Oh, all the time.
We take it for granted.
All the time.
Look, I'd like to start off just sharing with the audience a little bit about who Jude is. Talk a little bit about where you grew up and then what you do.
I'm one of 6. I have 5 siblings that are absolutely amazing. They're brilliant. My mom is a saint. My dad passed away in 1999, but he was, sort of the North Star in our family.
Sure.
He'd served 38 years in the military.
Wow. What branch?
Air Force, and Air National Guard. So 38 years and retired as a senior master sergeant. So he was a non-commissioned officer. So that's sort of how we grew up. Is my dad would show up or come in our room, my brothers and I in the room in the morning, and go take a shower, and we were expected to get out and our beds made and ready to roll for the day. Yeah. So that was order in our lives. And then when he came home from work, we'd go out to our farm and work our horses and feed our horses and stuff like that. My dad was born in 1932, and that sort of that old school mentality of work ethic and we don't need a TV. We have horses.
That's right.
So we worked horses and did a lot of growing up.
A lot of wisdom in that could be 100%. That could be manifested in today's world 100%. Right from that.
And my mom is a saint. Amazing. And so all my siblings are amazing. My kids are fantastic. And I think that's the most important thing to me, is being a great dad, right? That is, being a father and a great dad and a great husband is primary in my life. Now, my professional life, it's been great. What a pleasure. I've been active in HFMA. For those that don't know, it's Healthcare Financial Managers Association for going on 20 years, I suppose. Just been able to serve in a lot of different capacities within that organization. And then professionally, I started my career after college. I ran a wilderness camp for mostly served kids for 7 years. Dumbed myself into healthcare after that.
Just curious, what brought you into that wilderness camp? Like, that was kind of like after college, that's what you did, right? That's where you went. Yeah. What propelled you to that? And then maybe that transition from that to healthcare. So
probably what I needed, a lot of folks graduated college and they're like, oh, I'm going to work at this office. I knew that me in an office was a bad idea. It's like a bull in a china shop. I was going to destroy everything. Stuff was going to fly. It was bad. So
it's oil and water. Just doesn't mix.
It just doesn't mix. And back in the day, I'm going to age myself, I was looking through the newspaper for jobs, and there was work with kids in the woods, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds perfect. So I went and applied, and fortunately, Eckerd Youth Alternatives is a great organization. They ran about 18 wilderness camps at the time up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and I sort of dumbed myself into as a counselor teacher, where we lived 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with these boys who were all adjudicated in up on the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee. I did that started as a counselor, then a master counselor. So I got to lead out all the wilderness trips.
That's great.
Which was phenomenal. And then a program director sort of oversaw the day to day. And in that process, I learned so much about life. And
yourself, about life yourself through that experience.
Absolutely.
with kind of mentoring these kids, right?
Yeah. And so we had the kids over for about a year. And so it was just fantastic. So I had some great leaders that sort of shaped me. And, I had one of my leaders that looked at me and said, hey, I want you to grow like an oak and you're growing like a weed, which taught me a lot about leadership. And he had a relationship with me to be able to say that. Yeah. And so I learned build those relationships, build that time so you can, when an issue comes up or something comes up, you can confront them and say what you need and speak truth to them. And that's huge, because he spoke truth to me and he was right. Yeah. And I was like, I need to learn how to grow better.
How did you transition though from kind of this youth leadership, this camp, to healthcare? What brought you into healthcare?
I needed a job. Okay. Really, I needed a grown-up job. And I sort of started my career in that, doing Medicaid enrollment. So taking Medicaid applications for patients that needed help. And then that's transformed my career. And then I spent 10 years doing denials, fighting insurance companies and or the government for payment for hospitals. Yeah. And then now in 2020, we started Invicta Health Solutions. And we took that Medicaid enrollment, that next step. So we, on top of trying to help those patients get Medicaid, we're also looking at some of those social determinants of health and trying to help those patients also get some other programs to help them personally. So it's sort of that next, building a better mousetrap, it's sort of that next generation of, hey, we can help this patient with Medicaid, right, to get their hospital bills paid. Yep. But the next level is that social determinants.
There's things that are beyond that.
Right. Like if you can get some of the patients, energy assistance, right? That it means the world to them to get those $60 off their energy bill. That makes a big difference that month.
Yeah.
Can I buy my prescription drugs, or can I buy groceries for my kids, whatever the case may be? Those are some of the big things that, that really fire me up, just to help those patients.
That's great.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see the passion in your eyes and your heart. It exudes from you. So that's wonderful. I share with friends of mine that aren't in the healthcare industry, just how broad healthcare is. They're amazed at it when I talk about it. They think healthcare, and of course, everybody typically defaults in their mind who aren't healthcare revenue cycle. They default in their mind to the clinical side of it. They don't know anything about what goes on behind the scenes. It's like, well, yeah, I had a service. There's a bill that comes out, and insurance pays it, right? And that's pretty simple.
Right.
It's not that simple.
Never that simple. It's so complex too, right? You could spend years in the revenue cycle and still not understand it all. And like the acronyms, we're huge on acronyms.
Yeah, it's incredible. What are just some of the little nuggets that you've learned coming up from when you entered in healthcare to where you're at in a leadership position right now, and along the way, just some nuggets that you can share with our audience?
I learned that it is about relationships, and it's about building more than just a working relationship, but getting to know people, knowing what's going on with their lives. It makes a huge difference. And if I could give anyone advice that's coming in to build relationships, put money in the bank with people, get to know them, spend time with them, be an honest person, be authentic about who you are. Yeah. It's really easy for us to be like, oh, this is the person I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
And we show that face, but it's not authentic. And I learned that at that wilderness camp, right? Like I was working with these kids 6-7 days a week.
That was a fundamental building block of who you've become today from that.
And then I would go off on my time off, as a young 20-something, getting in trouble, being rowdy or whatever. And then I would come back and try to be this role model, these 10 emotionally disturbed boys that are all adjudicated and needed help. And I was like, this doesn't match.
Yeah.
What I'm doing with them and what I'm doing on my time off, the 2 days I'd get off every 6 or 7 days, they don't match.
Right.
And I learned that lesson. Like you have to be who you are. And even if it's a little weird, that's fine.
Yeah.
Be your own true self, right?
And that's how we live our most authentic self. And then through living our most authentic self, that's where we can thrive and really help impact the lives of other people.
Right. There's a piece. We're put on this earth to help and love on other people. Like we're not here by ourselves, right?
No.
And so, when people say I pulled myself up from my bootstraps, and to the question point, like no one ever does it by themselves. There's people that pour into them, parents, teachers. There's people that pour into them, that help them, that elevate them up. And it's easy for folks to get so focused on self. Yeah. And it's not about who you are. Mm-hmm. It's not about who you are. It's about giving back and making the world a little bit better every single day. And there's things you can do every single day to make the world just a little bit better.
So, you've served obviously and are serving in a key leadership position for your organization. Mm-hmm. You're serving in a key leadership position inside your home, right? There's no doubt about that. And that's tough. I mean, it's tougher inside that home. At least for me, it is. It's tougher inside the home than it is outside the home, and that's a big struggle.
Agreed. But again, going back to what we talked about, that being integrous, being who you are across the board, and it's okay to get mad, right? You're gonna get, especially with your kids or your spouse. There's issues there, but if you've put enough money in the bank, when I say money, I'm
relational equity.
Relational equity. Like it makes a difference, right? When you spend the time with your kids, where you're like, hey, I'm challenging you on this because I'm your parent, not your friend.
Yeah. I love that. I love
your parent, not your friend. But I've built enough equity to challenge you that way. Yeah. Like I've built enough there. And I think that's true in professional relationships as well.
Without a doubt.
Right? Like that, how does that translate to other folks and building those relationships matter and asking those questions? And you're not going to get along with everybody, right?
Yeah, no.
There's going to be people that are like, just don't like you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's all right. That's fine.
That's fine.
We try to bring that to the forefront, even in our own organization, talking about that it's okay. Let's bring that to the table. There are some things that we're not going to agree on. Right. There's some things that we just don't click on. That's fine. That's okay. Let's be radically transparent about that, but it's going to allow us to be more authentic, and it's going to allow us to thrive because of our authenticity in that.
I think that 80% of this country agrees on 80% of the issues. Let's focus on that.
Yeah.
And that's true with our lives too, right? Yeah. We're not always going to get along about things, but we can agree on these things. Yep. And we can agree to disagree on these things. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. Let's move on.
That's great. I love it. So what ways and what tools, what things are you doing right now to kind of just sharpen yourself as a leader, sharpen yourself perhaps as a father? I mean, maybe it's books you're reading, maybe it's things that maybe it's meditation, maybe it's prayer. I don't know. What do you do?
So I think several things. Number one, I wake up every morning and I say thank you. I wake up every morning and say thank you. I typically start my day with a Bible verse. My wife says, she likes to sleep in a little bit longer. I'm typically up at 5 or 6 in the morning.
Okay, yeah.
So I sort of start with the Bible and then move and sort of read about news of the day. I always try to exercise, which is huge.
That's huge.
It doesn't show. Yeah. But I try.
No, it shows. It shows.
And then I just really focus in on how can I make a difference today professionally? How can I make a difference today in my family life? How can I make a difference today with myself? How can I be a little bit better today? But at the same time, how can I make a little bit of a difference in the world today?
Yeah.
Like, what can I do to show my kids how to make a difference in the world every single day? And it's not huge, right? So we talked earlier, and I was chatting with some folks earlier today, and it's like, we carry food in our cars. So when we pull up to someone on the side of the road with their sign, we say, hey, I've got a granola bar and a Capri Sun.
Yeah.
My kids initially
talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. My kids initially hated that. Yeah. And now they're like, Dad, roll down the window. We got Capri Suns in here.
Yeah. We got it right here.
We got it right here. It's not for us. We know.
Yeah.
And they love it. So it's those little things that making a difference and showing them to make a difference every day. I think that's the most important thing, is like that every day showing them that you're not going to get it perfect. We're not going to, right? We're going to mess it up.
No.
But at least they see the try.
Yeah. When you look at the things that you have, the deliverables that you have for the day from just a business perspective, what are the tricks of the trade of Jude to try to get through the day, your scheduling? How do you manage your schedule? What does that look like?
I think the most important thing there is just like, obviously having a plan. And I try to plan the night before, right?
Yeah.
Try to sit there and work it out. And then again, every single day I try to connect with somebody and spend that time, or try to make a difference a little bit in that day with people. I think, to love on folks on a regular basis, that fires me up and pour into people, but like just excites me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something I try to do every single day over the course of the day to make my day sort of go through.
Yeah,
and remind myself, right, that I'm blessed beyond measure. Yeah. And like to be able to give back and do things and create opportunities for other folks to do that too. Like, we talked briefly about the service projects that we started in HFMA. It's so fun to me to see how many people have just jumped on doing service projects.
Oh yeah.
Now as a national organization, I think that they're moving toward doing a national service project.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal.
Outstanding.
And 15 years ago, it wasn't even thought of. And then the South Carolina chapter of HFMA sort of took up the mantle and ran with it. And it stopped being a question of if we're going to do a service project, but what are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going to do?
Where are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it? Right.
Yeah. Well, it gives deeper meaning also to their jobs and to 100%. What they're doing. So this is a good segue. So tell me about how you have woven these community servanthood, into your journey, and what kind of, for you, for Jude, what propelled you to kind of start doing this with the chapters, right? And kind of leading the way here.
It was, I can tell you, when I first took the job in healthcare, right, I worked for a not-for-profit for 7 years, and I didn't know what to do. And I called a friend of mine. He said, listen, you can make money and make a difference. So I remember going to a conference, and I think I took 5 people to dinner, and we spent $1,200, right? And on 6 people at dinner, including myself.
Yeah.
Great dinner. Huge. Spent a lot of money. It was great. And I walked outside and I saw this guy sitting there just asking for food. So I gave him my leftovers and I thought, you know what? Something's not right there. I just spent $1,200 on taking these people to dinner for potential business or whatever. And there's a guy out here just asking for food.
Yeah.
So that night I went back to the hotel room, and I did some research, and I found an organization called 180 Place in Charleston, South Carolina. And I reached out to him, and I said, I want to provide breakfast to your shelter. And they said, okay, here's what we typically do. And so I went out to Costco with a dear friend of mine, Dan Story, and we drove to Costco, and we spent, I think, $370 on breakfast supplies. And we woke up Friday morning, and I got 10 other people to help me, and we went out and we made breakfast for the shelter. And we fed about 740 people. On
wow.
That $370 that I spent. It was unbelievable. Like
wow.
we fed 700 plus people on a fraction of what I spent
the night before.
Yeah. And the people that were helping me were like, this is incredible. And so the South Carolina chapter just sort of jumped on it and ran with it. And so we just moved down that road, and it just became a question every conference, what are we doing? Yeah. And then other chapters picked it up, and I had the opportunity to, talk to them and say, hey, can you do this? And over the years, we've done blood drives, bike builds. I mean, we've done so many different Meals on Wheels, different things across in different cities, in different chapters, and now it's taken a life on its own, and that's a God thing, right? Not me, by any stretch of imagination.
But he used you though as a catalyst to really jumpstart this, and that's his way. That's how he does it, right? Right. And that's what people don't really appreciate and fully understand. But it's just this one small random act of kindness, random act of servant, and how that impacts a community. What kind of advice could you share with the audience, and specifically with our younger audience listeners? And we've got people in 17, 18, 20 different countries, whatever it is right now, but about with looking at where those people are wanting to go in their careers, what kind of career advice can you give to these people about just how they can ultimately, and within the organizations, make a difference and ultimately grow themselves into leaders? I
think be true to yourself, right? And know and show up. Like showing up is huge. So many people don't show up. They miss it they don't show up on time or whatever. Patience, right?
Patience,
Patience. And I'm going to use a word that no one likes to hear. Sacrifice. And I think so many people mistake sacrifice as a painful thing. It's a choice. Like you show up, you make up, you work your butt off.
That's right.
For a reason. It's called sacrifice for a reason. And you make a choice every day. Yeah. It's easy to stay in bed.
Yeah, of course.
It is easy to stay in bed.
Absolutely.
But it's harder to get up every morning, make your bed, show up.
We're seeing in the workplace a struggle for having, and I'm not saying it's just younger generation folks, but just showing up. My dad and mom used to joke with me about, the first college you're going to is JSU, which is just show up. And that was their whole thing. And so that was, in life, it requires you, for you to start to do anything, you have to just show up initially. Show up.
I love, one of my favorite sayings is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. I want to just pivot to healthcare, back to healthcare for 1 second. Yeah. As we look into the next 10 to 20 years, from your perspective and your experience, what are some of the most profound changes that you believe will take shape, that will shape healthcare revenue cycle?
So it's interesting. I think, number one, that if you look at revenue cycle leaders, they're going to have to be more IT focused, right? Like when you think about, it's not just the numbers, it's also increasing IT and automation into processes and making that work. I think the other thing that's going to be interesting is that, again, the social determinants of health. So I can treat that broken leg and I can take care of that patient clinically, right? But if I'm releasing that patient and I'm sending them out into the wild, they don't have a place to live, they have nowhere to go, they can't buy their meds, those social determinants of health make a huge impact. And I think that's what you're going to see, is you're going to see hospitals and healthcare be more attuned to those other issues. Like they're going to say, hey, I can treat you, right? I can treat that broken leg. We'll use broken leg as an example. But if you don't have a safe place to go home to, like that makes a big difference. Or if you can't pay,
and the outcome of that procedure,
that broken leg, right? If you don't have a safe place to go to, guess where you're going to show up next week, or even 2 days later is back in the ED. And so I think you're going to see hospitals and healthcare in general move toward that. And the other issue, and an issue probably a lot of folks want to talk about, is insurance companies. Like a lot of folks miss those things. Like the insurance companies are doing quite well. United Healthcare posted a $5.2 billion profit margin. Right. We got to tap into them and say, listen, I appreciate your profit margin, but we also need help in getting these people.
Fundamentally, that's what you're supposed to do.
Correct.
You're the insurer.
You're the insurer here. And not to deny claims. And it's not your money. You're the steward of that money.
No doubt.
Right. Like you need to help those patients. You need to help those hospitals. Because you have so many hospitals that are barely staying afloat. I'm not saying that they're perfect and they need to do some other things differently.
No doubt. But hospitals, people don't realize how fiscally strapped many of the biggest hospital systems in our country are, that they don't understand.
Agreed. Like they don't get it. And then you see the insurers that are, record profits quarter after quarter, and it just doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Because then you see hospitals getting in trouble, but the patients are like, but it's like literally then the payers that are part of the biggest issue, that if we don't bring them to the table, then we're not going to fix this healthcare quote unquote conundrum.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we are out of time.
Oh, wow. Man, already. That was quick.
That was quick, wasn't it?
Dude,
we could just keep talking. I know.
Let's just go. Let's go. Let's just make stuff up.
We could keep going.
Yeah, whatever you need to do.
But the good news is we're going to come back with Jude on another episode. So those of you that joined us today, make sure to tune in after you listen to this episode for the follow-up episode. Look, hey, thanks for joining,
brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. I appreciate that.
Again, are you kidding me? This is fantastic. Thank you for
and thank you, and I'm thankful for what God's doing in your life and how He's encouraged you to help step out, step up, and inspire other people to do the things that you do. Keep doing what you do. Keep doing it the way you do it. You're doing great, man.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. Same to you, brother. Thank you.
I'd like to close with this quote. We don't need a title to lead. We just need to care. People would rather follow a leader with a heart than a leader with a title. That's Craig Rochelle from Life Church, I think it is. So as we wrap up, to all of our subscribers and listeners out in podcast land, I hope today's episode was both empowering and inspirational. Until the next episode, I pray that our daily lives and journey are filled with opportunities to lift others up as we aim to go above and beyond. Thanks, everybody.
Our executive producer and host is Matt Maloney, President and CEO of FAM360. Strategic Communication Coordinator, Michelle Ducato. Production assistance by Tin Dog Studios. Director, John Berland. Creative Assistant, Whitney Berland. Theme song, Connecting Dots by Curtis Cole, provided by Artlist. Please subscribe today and don't miss any of our weekly episodes.